Everybody else is ready.
It's recording. Should we get into beep number one?
Yeah. Okay, so this, I did this yesterday afternoon. So the first beep went off at 12:32 p.m. and I've written, the back of my neck was itchy and kind of tingly, almost like lots of little pinpricks in the nape of my neck. This was in my awareness as I copy and pasted a code on my laptop screen, but there were no thoughts per se. I was just sort of on autopilot doing the mechanics required while looking at my laptop.
Okay. So there's this back of the neck, itchy, tingly, pinpricky thing.
Yeah.
On the nape. Is that like the whole back of your neck, or is a specific
Probably like a palm's width, like right at the base of your neck, in between your shoulder blades.
Okay, palms width at the base, between shoulder blades. So going down a bit lower than the neck, or just?
No, just like in terms of that distance.
Okay, that distance.
But yeah, right at the bottom of your neck.
Okay. And it's this, is it like clearly within a sharp area, or is it kind of diffuse where it starts and ends?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say sharp. I would say sort of, yeah, diffused is a really lovely word. It was like a localized area, but it wasn't like,
Okay.
That.
And it's itchy, tingly, pinpricky. Is it unpleasant at this moment?
I almost can't recall, to be honest. I think like a little.
Okay.
I wouldn't use the word painful, but I wouldn't say it was like enjoyable.
Okay. Okay, let me see. Is there more to say about how it feels, like this itchy, tingly, pinprickiness of it?
It was, I don't know, it wasn't like extreme or like an overwhelming pain or itchiness, but it was certainly enough that it was definitely part of my awareness. But it wasn't like, an overwhelming emotion where it was like, painful or anything. I don't really know how else to describe it other than sort of what I said. Itchy, tingly, almost like pinpricky. I guess like surface level-y as opposed to like muscular.
Okay. So
like skin sort of depth.
Skin depth. Do you have more questions to ask about this neck sensation, Russ, before we move on to?
I'm ready to go on.
Okay. And so you're copy pasting something and looking at your laptop?
Yeah.
Is this just fact of universe? You're skillfully doing this, but you're not directly experiencing it? Kind of like you might not be directly feeling the chair under you all the time?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, like slightly more than feeling the chair under me. Like it was a little more part of my awareness than sitting on the chair. Like I didn't even note that, but it was very mechanical, like very something I would describe as autopilot. It feels like one of those fact of the matter sort of things.
Okay. But still a little bit more than totally not even there, not even registering at all?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. And in the part that's there, is it more about the visual seeing what's being copy pasted, or the action that's doing, or it's hard to even say because it's so barely there?
I think if I was going to say something, it would be the visual element, but like barely there.
Okay. Do you have questions about that, Russ?
Nope.
Then I'm good on this sample.
Me too. Number two.
Okay, 12:51. I've got in quotation marks, what do I have at 3 was the exact phrase in my head as a concept and all at once. sort of like a spark of confusion had come across me. And then, apologies, but I'm in the business of sharing everything that's relevant here. I wrote, I also kind of needed to pee. And so this physical sensation was part of my awareness, like a dull, bloated feeling in my bladder. I was looking off into the distance in my living room, but wasn't looking at anything specific. So there wasn't anything visual, particularly part of my awareness. It was that phrase and then that sort of bloated feeling.
And which is more central to you, the bloated feeling or the
Definitely
phrase?
the phrase. Yeah.
60-40, 90-10, 99-1?
Maybe even like 70-30. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's start with the phrase. And is the phrase there in words or is that in concepts?
Oh, I would know a concept. But that's really tricky for me to say because I'll tell you why. Because it was that distinct phrase, but like that phrase as a concept almost. You know, it's not a phrase I'm hearing or I'm not seeing the words or like I haven't said that to myself, but I was clearly thinking of that phrase as a concept, not as like the words themselves. Does that make sense?
Well, let me ask it in a different way. So would it be okay to say that it would have been equivalent as what's my appointment at 3:00? Would that have been an adequate way of saying it or not an adequate way of saying it?
No, because it was really specifically that phrase that I said, what do I have at 3? That was definitely it, yeah.
So phrase for me is an ambiguous term that I like to try to sort through. So the question is this like, excuse me, a concept that is so tightly conceptualized that it has to be those words, or do I experience those words themselves?
The first one.
So it's not that it's the words, but it's the concepts that have basically no other way of articulating that than that.
Yeah.
Okay. And that concept then, I think you said, is not voiced or not seen or not whatever, but somehow directly present to you.
Yes. And this is a really integral to this. This is, yeah. I can't remember what I was going to say. Sorry.
I have one more question on that.
Yeah.
So in distinguishing between if it's the concept that's so tight that those are the words and between there being words.
Yeah.
Like even considering that words could be there, but not like you're not like hearing them in your head or they're not like you're not seeing a word.
Yeah.
The idea that a word could be there but not heard or seen or anything else, but the word could still be there. Between those possibilities, would you still go more with the concept or more with the concept?
So I think that's a great question, but I want to make sure that it's asked in an even-handed way.
Oh, sorry, there's some banging happening.
So
I don't prefer any of those options, by the way, that I just listed.
Yeah, can you rephrase? Wait, so I'll tell you my confusion with, I sort of understand what you're saying, Julian, but I think I am like at a point where I'm struggling to understand enough of a difference between the two things to be able to answer that.
Okay. Russ, do you want to give it a shot? Because I think you understand what I'm trying to ask.
So the question I think Julian is asking, which is a good question, which is one step beyond where I was asking before in a good way. And the question is, are the words there? What do I have at 3? Or is the concept there? Even though that the words aren't, we understand that the words aren't spoken or seen or whatever, but the words could still possibly be there. Or the concept could be there without actually any direct apprehension of the words. Is that a fair asking of
Yeah.
Julian?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I think it's hard for me to say, I think the words are there. but I don't know. My hesitation in trying to answer it is because I don't, like, I find it really difficult to, how do I experience the words if I can't, like, grab at them with any of those things, you know? So, like, what gives me comfort is, like, well, I'm not hearing the words and I'm not seeing the words and all of that sort of thing, but, like, there were words there, so it's it's a concept with some element of those words. But if you're now giving me the option of trying to consider, like, that concept without, like, I find that really hard. I'm like, I don't know.
So I guess I think this is the same question as I was trying to ask, but maybe I didn't. I asked it in a little too heavy-handed way. So is there any other phrasing that would be just as good? Like, do I have anything at 3?
Yeah, no. On this occasion, it was really specifically the words that I gave you. Yeah.
Okay. So where I'm coming down on the end of this is somewhere between a concept and a word, and we're not exactly sure where. It's definitely not a clearly articulated word, but it doesn't seem fair to say that there aren't any words at all either.
Yeah. That's really true to my experience a lot.
Okay. Which is okay with me if it's okay. Julian, you want to ask any more about that?
No, I'm good on this one.
And then I've got a P.
Sorry.
And what is that experience?
So I use the word dull, I think maybe in reference to it being like that sort of 30% of my awareness or whatever. And it was just like a localized awareness in sort of like my bladder region. So it was just like that dull awareness of that area, and it's kind of and that awareness manifests itself in like a bloated sort of sensation.
And is that present in before the footlights of your consciousness, at least like 30%ish or whatever? So it's not like when I look back, the question is it just when I look back at the moment of the beep, well, I got a pee, so that must have been there? Or is it?
No, I definitely felt it before this, yeah.
Okay. And is this an internal thing, surface of my body?
Oh, no, deep internal, yeah.
Okay. Then I think I'm happy with that. I don't think we need to push too much farther into that region unless Julian's got a particular interest.
Maybe one other question. Like, when you say a bladder-sized region, is that a very specifically constrained region, or is it broader?
No, I would say like similar to the neck thing where it's like diffused was a nice word, like sort of that area and then that. Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm good on that.
Okay. Next one went off at 1:16 p.m. and I have written nothing. I was sitting, looking into the distance in my lounge room, but not really taking anything in or thinking about anything.
Okay, so there's nothing. You're sitting, you're looking. So factor the universe, your eyes are pointing in a certain direction.
Yeah.
Is that at all registering?
I would say like not like beyond like fact of the matter, sort of.
Okay.
Like I'm not taking anything in that I'm seeing. Like, you know, when we've spoken about like seeing and looking or listening and hearing sort of thing, like I would put it in that category of like I'm looking but I'm not like seeing or whatever.
Okay, looking, you're not noticing anything, you're not thinking about anything, you're not hearing anything.
Nothing's like registering.
Nothing's registering.
Yeah.
Then would you Okay, I'm good on this one.
Yeah. Me too. Number four?
This one went off at 2:20, and much of the same. I've written nothing. I was on autopilot in between actions, and I wasn't thinking about anything or taking anything in particular in.
And is there anything different between this beep and the previous one? Nothing at all? This is just the same deal? Okay. And my body is no doubt in a different position, and my eyes are aimed in a different direction, but that doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, but in terms of awareness, it felt exactly the same.
Okay, then I'm good.
Next one was unless Julian, did you have anything?
I kind of forgot to jot down the basic context, not that it's so important for experience, but where were you for beep number 3 and number 4?
I was, so the first one, 3, I was in my living room and sitting down, and then for 4, I was still in my living room, but I was like walking around, like I was caught in the middle of sort of walking through my living room.
Okay. So we can go to number 5.
Okay. Number 5 was at 2. Sorry, can you hear this? New York things.
Sounds like a construction
and
site
like
somewhere.
It shouldn't be. Like I'm in my new apartment, and there hasn't been any construction. Anyway, I apologize. I don't know what I'm doing.
That is the life in the big city.
It is. Sorry. I'm sure it'll be done soon. Okay, so 2:33 was the next one, and I was listening to my friend Liv speak and actively engaged in that. I can't recall the exact words she was saying, but I was hyper-focused on listening deeply to her.
So you're listening to your friend Liv speak. You're focused on her and what she's saying.
Yeah.
You can't recall the words. Can you recall the topic or no?
Oh, I don't even think I can. I didn't write it at the time, and I don't think I can even remember.
Okay, you can't remember. Do you think at the time of the beep, was what she was talking about, like, were you experiencing that in some way, or was it, or you're not sure?
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that? I can't quite hear you.
So you didn't write down, you don't remember what she was talking about, but at the moment of the beep, was that in your awareness before the footlights?
As in what she was saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I when I was writing it down, I couldn't remember the exact words that she was saying, so I noted that, but I just didn't write down whatever we were talking about. I can't remember what, I don't know, probably a recent date she went on or something, but definitely the words that she was saying, or the conversation that we were having was absolutely the entirety of my awareness at that time. So yes, what she was talking about was absolutely part of my awareness.
So just, being focused on what she was talking about was your entirety of your awareness. You weren't hearing some other sounds wherever you were in the coffee shop? Or...
No, nothing. No.
And Russ, do you have any questions about this one?
Yeah, I'd like to see whether there's a distinction between focusing on the conversation, which sort of abstracts the conversation away from, is her name Liv or Lynn?
Yeah.
Liv? So the question is, am I aimed at the conversation, or am I just aimed at Liv and she's talking and I'm absorbed in this, but without a particular direction at the conversation. I'm understanding that I'm understanding the conversation. I'm comprehending. That's part of the deal. But the question is it just about the conversation, or is it I am just absorbed in this scene, and this scene is involving Liv talking about whatever it is that she's talking about?
think the latter, if I understand the distinction well enough.
So the difference is, let's say she's talking about the election, and so the question is your experience aimed at the election theme, or is it aimed at, I'm absorbing this whole deal? It happens a bit this time. It's about the election, but it's not that the election is the central thing to me. It's the whatever it is that's here. It happens to be the election, but it's live. And,
I understand. No, definitely, like the present moment, the scene was the thing. Yeah, that's interesting.
Then I'm good. That is how I understood what you said in the opening salvo, by the way. Number
6. God, we're speeding through today. 3:05 p.m. I read a text that said "feel better," and was sort of absorbing that. I was looking at my phone on the kitchen bench and taking in that phrase. Also feel I was a little startled by this beep and therefore couldn't quite remember more broadly if anything else was present in my awareness.
So is this about the reading "Feel Better"? Is that where your experience is aimed? And somebody has written that to you.
So a text sent me that text.
And is that part of your experience, the texter, or that she is conveying that to me, or is that it's a fact? But I'm just at this moment, I'm just into the concept.
So,
"Feel Better."
No, I think it was like the phrase and those words and like that as a concept, but not tied to that person. Would be well wishes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And does the reading itself have any characteristics?
Oh, I always find this challenging. Like the characteristics of the reading are that like my eyes are pointed down at my phone and they see those words and I'm like absorbing those words, but I can't give you any more description than that's how the reading happens.
I don't say to myself, quote, "Feel better," unquote. I don't hear my voice saying, or I don't hear the writer's voice saying.
No.
There's nothing like that. And yet somehow I am taking in these exact words.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is sort of the distinction that I was making, that we were making in the previous beep, or whenever that was. This is about the words, not about the situation or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one was not so much about the words, and I'm speaking about the one that's live. This is about the message. The live beep was about I'm absorbed in the moment, situation, whatever that was.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and that's a really nice juxtaposition, and that makes both of those things feel like they sit even better with me by being able to compare them. They feel distinctly different. Yeah. That's cool.
As an aside, I would say it's amazing to me in my DES work how often that kind of thing happens, where there's one beep that clarifies another beep in some important way.
How interesting. Especially when it's like...
So Jung would have an opinion about that.
Especially when it's like, in the weeds for me. So it's like getting to points that are kind of hard to articulate or like distinguish, like, it's in the real gray areas. So being able to see the differences and like feel the differences in those descriptions is really nice.
So I think I'm good about this particular beat.
So you're registering feel better.
Yeah.
I actually have a few more questions. I don't know if I missed some stuff.
Sure.
Is it more about this concept of feel better, or the concept and also the words feel better, or some mix?
It wasn't so much the concept. It was really more like just the reading and cognition of those words rather than like a broader concept of the meaning associated with those words, to be honest.
Okay. So you're registering the words feel better, but you're not attaching broader meaning, but feeling better?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not on this occasion.
So before we leave that, there's still two possibilities behind that. So one is that these words are semantically free, so to speak. I am somehow taking in these things feel better, and they don't have any meaning at all to me. They might as well be in Greek. I recognize them as words, but they could be Greek. Or I recognize this as a well wish, and but nothing further than that. These are understandably well-wished words. Feel better.
Annoying response to that, but I would say honestly, like it was sort of something in the middle. I wouldn't say like it's as though the words were Greek, but like there wasn't a whole lot of meaning, associated with them at the time. No. So if somewhere in the middle could kind of be possible, then that sits comfortably with me.
Okay, clear on that. Can I ask one more question about sample 5?
Yep.
So you said it was more about the scene and being absorbed in Liv talking and being attentive to her rather than about exactly what she's talking about, if she's talking about watching or like a date she went on recently.
Yeah.
It's more about the scene. Do you think it's at all about what she's talking about? Or is it, like, do you think could be just about the scene, but she could be talking about her dog or talking about a date? Doesn't even matter? Or do you think it's somewhere in the middle? Or
so how
make sense to you?
Yeah, how I understood the like line of questioning that Russ asked, which made me to answer that way, is that I'm definitely hyper focused on what she's saying, but it's like my awareness is still like tied to that present moment. So it's not like she's telling me about a date she went on and my mind is processing those words and then thinking quite conceptually about like that area, or if we use the election reference, I'm not then sort of thinking about Donald Trump or like whatever in the broader the broader conversation concept. It wasn't that. It was tied to this moment, seeing my friend, hearing my friend, really actively listening to my friend, and the words that she was saying were really relevant, but I was still very much grounded in that moment, if that helps.
Okay. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So I think in that sense, it's probably why I couldn't quite remember the exact words she was saying, or haven't even felt the need to write down like the subject of our conversation, because it was so grounded in listening to her in that present moment and the scene that Russ is calling it, as opposed to thinking more like broadly about the conversation.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good on questions for that and for 6.
So that gives us some time to talk about what we got to be doing here, because I think we are in the diminishing returns realm. Yeah. I'm not saying that we have arrived there yet, but I think we got to be talking about what we're gonna do here. We've been at this for 13 times. I think we have a fairly clear sense of what Mel's experiences are like. There's quite a bit of nothing, and there's not very much cognitive, thinky kind of stuff. There's absorption. There's sensory awareness. And I'm guessing if we continued on, we would get some more of that. and there is some some virtue in going forwards and nailing that stuff down. But I think there's also alternatives, and maybe we should think about alternatives. And so I guess that what I'm really sort of asking what everybody's interest here is, and we don't necessarily have to have the same interest. We have to share the same hour or whatever, but we don't necessarily have to be doing it for the same reason. But so, for example, I think we could enlist another person, and the three of us interview that person, and that would be another thing that we could do. And I don't know whether that would be something like Mel at one time or several times has said she's interested in doing something with this project, and I don't know whether that would make things easier for her or harder for her or whatever.
That's interesting.
I don't know whether Mel has been paying attention to the conversations that Julian and I have been having. We've been sending it back and forth. You could or could not have been paying attention. I don't really have to know about that, but I don't know how much of that is in Mel's interest wheelhouse.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. It's funny, I had a conversation with a producer friend yesterday actually about this, because I often talk about it because I find it so interesting, and sort of felt like as I was talking to him about it, it was probably ready to consider like next steps of what sort of form this takes and stuff. So I feel like I've been thinking the same, Russ. I think that's I hadn't considered that, but I think that would help with whatever I want to do here. You know, like we all agreed that it was very important for me to experience this side of the fence in order to tell a story about this. And I think that it would make it even richer to sort of experience the other side of things. I think that's a really great suggestion.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that, but I think it's a really interesting suggestion. I was kind of thinking the same thing during this interview, like we're kind of snapping along through it, and I feel like I could see it kind of wrapping up at some point.
Yeah.
I was thinking in my head maybe 15, but that's probably just because I like certain numbers, but I guess that doesn't matter so much.
I mean, I'm happy to be guided by you guys. Like, you know, you guys are the actual researchers. So like happy for you to say, yeah, as you just have Russ, like when you think that there's no longer any additional value in doing any of these. If you want to do another two, I'm open to another two. If you think there's nothing more to be gained from doing this, happy to wrap and pivot.
Well, I think there are several different streams of interests going on in our conversations. Yeah. And I don't know that I could articulate exactly what they are, but from my stream, the one that I would say is centered on me is I'm interested in communicating about how to do DS and what's at stake here, and what are good questions and what are bad questions and why, and how are there good questions and are there bad questions, and if so, and whatever. So that kind of, I think these have been a very useful set of conversations about that, and they were so up through day 12, and I suspect they will be about day 13. But I think from my point of view, it might be more valuable from that stream for us to engage a different person, a different subject, because then that would give us a different set of perspectives. And
I have another interest. I hadn't thought of joining these projects, but maybe I'll throw it out. I have a twin brother, and I did DS before with him, and the results we got were very different from what he expected of his experience. So he has these chronic pain conditions that debilitate his life, and the results were different. And I talked to him recently, but he didn't really believe the results. Like he was like, "Oh, that can't be true," because we talked about it quite some time after. So I wanted to go and redo DES with him with another person because I think doing it myself, I would be too biased.
Yeah.
Or it would just be nice to do with another person. I
I
don't
think
know if, yeah.
one other thing, and this is me spitballing, but I think it would be really interesting to me to jump on like your side of the fence for someone that we suspect has a very different experience to me. So like if that's your twin brother or anyone, but like that would really enrich my endeavors with this project. I think someone that has a very different experience.
I think it's very different from the DS I did before. It is very different. Yeah.
Interesting.
So I've got two reactions to that. One is that I'm happy to do the sampling with Julian's brother, but I also think that brings in a new set of complications because then there's the recollections of what sampling was like before and all that kind of stuff. So I think that is maybe more complicated than Mel's interest.
Okay.
We can do that. So I'm not saying that Julie and I only have to ever sample with two people and then the next person is the last one or whatever. I think we can work that out. As far as picking somebody whose experience is different from Mel's, that would be just about everybody. So and I'm not saying that Mel is a unique person and so nobody ever will live up to her.
Thanks, Russ.
Obviously I think she is, but everybody is in their own way. So I'm not at all worried about that. And I'm also a very strong believer in randomness, I guess you would say. We're going to, no matter who we get, if we pick somebody out of the hat with no interest at all, we're going to get somebody that you would find interesting from this side of the side of the fence.
Agree.
I've got absolutely no doubt about that.
Yeah, I guess just what I was getting at, without trying to decide and point. I know we'll uncover so much random stuff. It'll be so different to mine. It'll blow my mind. But I just would really love someone that doesn't have so much nothingness and has more of a traditional monologue or something that doesn't fall in the category of the nothingness as much. That's all.
Well, short of sampling with somebody for a while and finding out, I just think we don't know the answer to that. But I would also say you're pretty unusual as far as having as much nothingness as you've got. That's so picking up at random gives you a pretty high probability of getting somebody that's different from you. But I would also say that if we did get somebody that was pretty much like you, I think there would be something to be learned from that. It would be a different something, but it might be just as interesting or more.
Well, yeah, you're right, because I would be able to ask questions that are different because I feel like it's so similar to my experience. So in a way, it's sort of like as if I had the opportunity to kind of question myself. So yeah, I agree.
Right. And it's sort of like the distinction between beeps 5 and 6, where fine distinctions allow, or the juxtaposition of experiences that have something in common but something not in common allows you to understand the phenomenon that you're interested in.
Yep. Yeah, well, I mean, do you have, Julie, we could do your brother or whatever, or Russ, I'm sure you have 1,000 people that often reach out to you. I'm easy.
I know if I were going to pick somebody, I would pick a student who's shown an interest to me, interested in my work, who's a young. She might be a freshman or something like that. So a young person. I don't really know much about her, so I don't have any. I don't know what we would find, but that would be so that would be one way of doing it. and Julian and I have also talked about an interest in something years ago. Maybe that interest was in OCD, maybe something like that.
OCD, yeah, we did.
That would be interesting. Or Mel might have somebody in mind as well.
Well, yeah, okay. I want to sit on this for a little bit and think about it, because also, like, I want to think about it like from a, broader creative point. Yeah.
So I guess the way I think about it is I'm interested. So this is Russ speaking now. Anybody else can speak however they want to speak about it. But at this juncture, my motivation would be to do what Mel thinks would advance Mel's ball, because I think Julian's and my ball, the discussions that we've had about method and whatever, I think that will happen, no matter who we did, and so the road could lead to Mel's interest.
Yeah.
And Julian's and my discussions about method, which I think have been useful, I think would be just as useful on that road as on anybody else's road.
How do you feel about all that, Julian?
That makes sense. I do want to do something with my brother at some point, but that could be something separate.
That's fine with me.
Yeah. Okay, let me think about it, and maybe even because I appreciate you also being really willing to do whatever helps serve my idea for this project. I really appreciate that. I want to think about that. So give me like 24, 48 hours to think about that, and then we could sort of look at some next steps for that. But I think that that's a really exciting idea, and it feels like the right time to do that sort of thing. Yeah.
So what I would say, let's not put a time limit on it. However your creative process works, if you would like to put a time limit on it, do it. But when you think you have something to say or talk about or whatever, let us know, and we can get together and talk about it and see whether we're all on the same page.
Yep, that would be great.
That seemed like a plan to you, Julian?
That sounds like a plan, yeah.
Awesome.
And then
all
for
right.
this project, there's also the question of what we're going to do with the video writing. It's kind of a separate. But for now, we'll just transcribing the interviews, and then we'll see from there, I guess.
Yeah. I do think there is a lot in this project that is totally interesting. And it's probably interesting in a variety of very different kinds of ways. And I would, if I had the vote, my vote out of, I think we got to have a unanimity in this vote, but my vote would be that at least sooner or later we put this whole batch of everything out on the web so people can take a look at it. We clean it up a little bit to make it accessible, and then stick it out there on my website or anybody else's website or all of the above or something. Because I think there are hugely important conversations that Julian and I have been having, which I think would be totally useful for somebody interested in the method. And I think the struggle with Mel and her nothingness or whatever, I think is a useful, interesting story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at a point where I want to really start to think about creatively more of this. The discussion I had with that friend was really interesting yesterday. He's done a lot of commissions for places like the New York Times and the New Yorker and stuff like that, and certainly thought that, there's something of definite interest from places like that. So, now it's about sort of working out a narrative arc and like what I would do and how I would tell it, and I think that's sort of where my brain is starting to think next. So being able to do something that would be an audiovisual piece, like a video documentary that is very much autobiographical. Like that was the whole idea here that I experienced on this side. So then your suggestion of then flipping it, I think, adds such a rich layer to it all. So that's sort of the direction that my brain's heading, and trying to work out that sort of thing and put some sort of pitch together to, perhaps start investigating very slowly the idea of commissions for a video piece out of all of this.
Well, I think this conversation has been productive. It seems like we're all more or less in agreement that there's a fork in the road or a bend in the road or something that we're approaching, and I think the next step around the bend is going to be as interesting as this step. I think these have been totally interesting.
Totally. And can I just say broadly, from like a personal perspective, because people ask me about this all the time, I have noticed such a change with myself since we started this. I mean, we've been doing it for a long time now, but like it's definitely just like the art of noticing. And I found such pleasure in progressing, I think, at being able to find language for parts of myself. I think I'm a better writer now as a result, and I notice little things better, and I just feel like there's something in the DES format, like by design, that is so such a challenge to do that level of noticing, but then to be able to try and convey it and feel yourself getting better at that has just had great positive impacts on so many other aspects of my life, which is so cool.
Mm-hmm. So I'm happy to hear that, and I'm not surprised to hear that, because I think a lot of people have that. But I think the attempt to be genuinely, straightforwardly honest about things that are actually personally present is pretty much at the core of every deep thinker, every deepness. Let's put it that way, I think, and
I think it's also led to like I'm more comfortable at being like vulnerable with friends and family and everything. Like, it's created this sort of openness with expression, which I always had, but I think that that's just gone off the charts even more. It's really cool. Like, this has been a very good experience in so many ways for me. So like, thank you so much for having me on board to participate, because it's been really cool.
So that's been my pleasure. Julian can speak for himself too. But what I would say is, I don't think it's about the words. Julian and I have been having a conversation about it. It's about the words. But what you said was, you made it seem like, well, now I can put these things into words. I don't think that's the important thing. It's the things that are the important thing. And when you see the things as they are, then side effect of that, well, I can put them into words now because I know what
Yeah, true. Yeah, I felt that.
So I don't think it's about the language at all.
Yeah,
really.
It's about noticing and
very slowly.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Also, from my side, doing the interviews is also transformative, because you realize you have a certain way of looking at things, and then you have to step back and unpeel why that's wrong and adapt, like to try to understand your experience, and if it's different from mine in some way or different from how I think mine is. And then like being on the other side doing the interviews is also pretty transformative. So I'm very grateful to have this chance.
Very cool. All right, well, let's leave it at that after that very lovely conversation. And yeah, let me think things over, and I'll be in touch once I've got some ideas or whatever, and vice versa, reach out if you have any ideas or thoughts or whatever in the coming.
Yeah. if I didn't want to say that Mel should be the only leader in this kind of a situation, because it could be that after this dribbles down or seeps in or whatever, then I've got a better idea, or Julian will have a better idea, or whatever.
Yep.
So I'm not backing away from what I said. I still think right now. I still think that trying to tailor the next step in Mel in accord with Mel's interest is a good idea, but I may not think that in another half an hour.
Yeah.
And Julian might not think that either. And both of us should have a right to say that.
Yep. Cool.
All right. Sounds good to me.
Let's mull it over.
I'll chat to you both soon. Thank you so much.
Hope you feel better.
Thank you.